Have you so far enjoyed the environment that Westfield Schools has had to offer you in your first couple months?
Oh my gosh, absolutely. It's been amazing. I've had the opportunity to spend many different days in each of the schools, as well as meet people in the community, and it's been overwhelmingly positive.
So what's the biggest difference between here and DeKalb, where you were last time? What would be the biggest difference?
Sure. I would say one of the biggest differences between the two school districts right now is just the rapid pace of growth at Westfield and in the community as a whole. That would probably be the biggest difference.
Yeah. Do you think the growing size of our student population will affect the learning environment, just in an overall scheme of things?
You know, I really think that falls back to us as leaders and also as teachers and instructors, because the learning environment is something that we can be very focused on, and how we create a structure that can take a larger size school and really make it small by building smaller learning communities.
Yeah, and that's where my next question takes us to the new referendum.
Sure.
So the previous one was 25 cents per $100 assessed value. Right, correct.
23 cents.
Well, now it's going to be 23, right?
It was 23, and then the new one would be 20.
Would be 20. Okay.
Sure.
Perfect. So obviously, I know you support that. I read an article where the Chamber of Commerce wrote an open letter, and they supported it as well. So I just want to know, what would you tell a staff member or a student if this referendum wasn't to pass? What would happen then? What would the scenario be? It looks like it's going to pass, most likely, but what would the scenario be if it didn't pass?
Sure. So just a little bit of background information.
Yeah.
So when a referendum is passed, it's good for 7 years. And so we are actually in year 6 of our referendum. And so a decision was made to move forward with the renewal of the referendum this year, because in 2017 there isn't an election that's planned, which means that if we were going to have an election, we would have to pay for that.
Okay.
And so one of the reasons that we decided to move forward was because of that. And then also because we're actually able to, in this renewal, be able to reduce the tax rate. What we would do is, when it's approved in November, we would forego year 7 of this last referendum. So if for some reason we would not be fortunate to pass our referendum in November, we would still have another year on our other referendum. So initially what we would do is we would go back, because we would have a year, and we could go back and we could put it back on the ballot in November of 2017.
Okay. Oh, that's perfect. I see what you're saying there. Okay.
Sure.
So what new changes could a freshman in our building right now expect by the time 2021 rolls around in their graduation? What changes overall do you expect to see in the coming years?
Yeah, well, I'm really excited about that, because I think in the upcoming months, actually, we're going to be having some really exciting meetings in our community. So, for example, Dr. McGuire and Mr. Davis, our athletic director, are going to be presenting at our work session with our board this month, and they're going to be presenting about the future of Westfield High School. Also, in addition to that, we're going to be doing some focus groups with people in our community, and then also some strategic planning, including our staff throughout the school district, to get input on what does education look like as we plan 10 years, 20 years, 30 years out. So I think something that would just be real obvious would be an integration of technology, and technology as a resource and a tool, and really trying to adapt to a teenager's life and the talents and interests of our teenagers.
Yeah, exactly. So this year, we also have noticed, or I've noticed now that I'm a senior, every single year class sizes continue to grow. The high school population, keeps growing. Do you think that our school's overpopulated? And what plans do you have? Like a new senior center? There were talks of a senior center or whatnot. I mean, are there anything in the works? I know you can't share too much, but what you can.
Sure. Well, I had mentioned earlier about some focus groups. So a couple of different things. So as we go through our strategic planning process, some of the things that we're looking for are the feedback of what will education look like 10 years, 20 years down the road, and then being able to look at that vision and then creating a high school learning environment that prepares our students for that future. Now, what that might mean is, it may very well mean additional space, and we do know that we have a certain capacity within our school, within our high school, and so we need to be able to address like what that renovation might look like, additional space, what that might look like. We also have to take into consideration, for example, in 2020, our high school debt will be paid off, and so we'll be in an even better position to be able to move forward with future construction.
Yeah.
But there certainly are some ideas on the table.
Yeah. Now, critics of the new referendum will say we just got a $7.5 million new stadium. Critics will say that it's the same old, just even though our taxes are going down, I'm still trying to just get both sides of the issue here. So what would you tell someone who's critical of the referendum, who thinks that it is the same old and plans to vote no against the referendum? What would you tell them in hopes of changing their mind?
Sure. So a couple of things. So first of all, the stadium that we have is just an incredible opportunity, actually, and a very innovative venture for our school district because it really wasn't an additional cost to our taxpayers. So I would encourage folks to really seek additional facts if there are certain things that they believe. But overall, what I would say to our taxpayers is a couple of things. This particular referendum it's a renewal, it's a replacement, it's a reduction in the current referendum, and who wouldn't want to do good things for kids?
Yeah.
And also just keeping in mind that when this referendum passes, this is roughly $734 per student, which really just brings us to about the average funding. And we think we have a pretty incredible school district. And if that's what we're really looking for, just to support, to continue strong programs and retain quality teachers in our school district, that's what we want to be able to do.
Yes. What's something that students might not know about you that you think they should in our building?
Okay.
So,
well, something that I think is kind of different or unique is I have had the opportunity to teach in a lot of different school districts. So I have taught in...
You've been a teacher before?
I've been a teacher, yes. So I've taught, I got to teach overseas in Sydney, Australia. And I've taught in a rural community, a suburban community, inner city. And so I've really had some really different experiences that I think are very well-rounded and have prepared me to be a leader in a strong school district.
As I mentioned earlier, the Westfield Chamber of Commerce has endorsed the referendum saying, and I quote, "A great school system consists of smaller class sizes, teachers and administrators who feel supported, and opportunities for students to be educated without cutting corners." So I ask you now, with the exponential growth that we're continuing to see throughout the district, where will some of the money go with what the Chamber of Commerce has said and kind of pursuing that overall ideal school district? Where will the funding be placed at?
Sure. So because this is an operation referendum, so these dollars can only be used toward the general fund. And the general fund for a school district really just funds people and programs. So it's pretty simple. So when you're talking about $5.5 million, that's several different positions if you were simply just to look at it as administrative positions or teaching positions. If we were not fortunate enough to pass the referendum, it would mean that we would have to reduce positions in our school district that would impact class size, especially at our elementary level. And those class sizes then would certainly increase, and programs might have to be eliminated.
Yeah, unfortunately. How do you hope to guide Westfield into a future of success? And if so, what other programs and initiatives do you have lined up maybe down the road as well?
Sure.
Do you have anything in particular? I'm just curious.
Yeah, well, what I would tell you is that, I didn't come to Westfield with a list of programs and initiatives to put into place. What I did, how I have come to Westfield though, is just willing to listen, to learn more about our community, and then build upon the input and the strong assets that we have in our community. So for example, Project Lead the Way is an amazing program that we have in our school district, and being able to create a pathway or expand a pathway that's already being successful, that's the type of idea or initiative that we want to bring to the community. One other thing that I would add to that too is that as I've been able to meet different clubs and organizations, what's amazing to me in this community is that every club, every organization is so passionate about helping the schools. And to me, that's so unique to this community. As opposed to maybe other communities, this community really wants to pull together to support education. I'm hoping that our future here in Westfield will also be focused on bringing all of those talents and assets together and really addressing the whole child. So we hear a lot about high stakes testing and the emphasis put on that. And while accountability is important and we want to make sure that our students are prepared for college and their futures, we also want to ensure that our students are well-rounded in their experiences and feel confident.
Yeah, I've seen that too with the work we do here at RockTV, and there's just a lot of opportunities that we have. So right now, what would one word you would use to describe the state of our entire school district? Yeah, it's kind of a tricky. I asked I asked Coach Gilbert. I'm asking you. I'm gonna ask everyone that I interview just one word. If you could give me one.
One word that states
the state of where our buildings are at, or where our school system is at. Yeah.
Okay, in one word.
In one word. I know that's kind of a tricky question.
Yeah. Say it's several different. I'm trying to choose that one word.
Yeah.
I would say progressive. And
I like that.
Yeah, I would say progressive. And I think because we have, all the right people on the bus.
Yeah.
And it's important to be able to have everyone focused in the same direction to be able to move forward as a school district. And I think we have that in our school district. And so we have individuals who are willing to look ahead and to really create the kinds of programs and opportunities for our kids that allow us to be progressive and also allow us to prepare our students for their future.
Yeah, that was a good response. So a couple of student questions now. I had someone ask about delays and closings. I know you're from the north. You guys get a little bit more snow.
And fog.
Yeah. Are you gonna be a little bit maybe more progressive in the way that you call closings and delays? I know in past years students have felt that it hasn't been as fair as it should have been with icy roads, and we're still trying to get to school. Are you going to be a little different? I mean, obviously you're a different individual.
Well, actually, the things that are the same no matter where you're at in a school district is that you tend to have a group of individuals that you're working together with to make those decisions, and there's never just one factor that you're relying on to make a weather-related call. So directors of transportation are involved in those conversations as well as superintendents. So you find that group in your area that you can work with. In fact, one of the first things that I did in coming on board was record a video about weather preparedness.
Yeah.
It's on our website.
Perfect.
And so that's available for folks to look at. But there just are a number of factors that go into making those weather-related calls. But it's important to really take into consideration that what the weather might be like at 5 a.m. can change so quickly by the time our buses are on the road. And so there just really are a lot of factors that you take into consideration.
All right. Okay, gonna kind of switch gears now.
Okay.
We're gonna go to bullying.
Okay.
So bullying, as you know, there's a lot that goes into that across many platforms of our school district. I've seen it personally. I'm sure almost every student has seen bullying or been affected by bullying in some way. Is there anything that might be of change now with new leadership in position that would maybe reduce some of the bullying, or are we still going to stand by the same principles that we have?
Sure. First of all, I'd like to know a little bit more about when you share about bullying, what that looks like from a student's perspective. I know that because there is a law at the state level that schools need to have programs for implementation to address bullying. What I think would be important, initial steps would be really identifying what is the program or what is that initiative that we have in our school district that really creates a positive culture and climate from pre-K to to a senior in high school? And then are we following that program so that it's aligned very well? Are all of our schools doing the same kind of program? And then can we all speak the same language? And are we all focused on those same goals about creating a positive and safe culture for our students?
Yeah, perfect. So has Westfield lived up to all of your thoughts and expectations? I'm just curious. Has it lived up to that?
Oh my gosh, yes, and then some. Yes,
Yeah.
I'm so excited to be here. It's been an amazing transition, and as you can imagine, with July 1st being my first official day on the job, I really feel blessed actually that we're moving forward with our referendum. What that's allowed me to do, I was already going to meet people, but it's allowed me to really get to meet people a lot more rapidly and get to know the community. And I have absolutely loved being out in the schools.
And you've said you don't want to be a desk superintendent, right? You've said you don't just want to stay in your office. You want to get out.
I would like to be out and about.
More active, So, what strategy, or I guess I already asked that, but so we obviously we have very high graduation rates here. It's like 98.2% in Hamilton County, highest one in Hamilton County, I believe. Rank in the top 3% of Indiana schools, I-STEP scores. So is it more of a continuation then of just what this referendum is saying, just a continuation of what we've already achieved continuing down the road? Is that essentially what this referendum is saying?
It's maintaining, and then how do you build upon the strong success? Sometimes, for a school that may be struggling with achievement, it might be easier to move the needle. But when you're at 98.2% for a graduation rate, okay, we got to figure out then what do we do to get to 100%? What does that look like? And kind of like I mentioned earlier, there is so much emphasis on high stakes testing, but how do we continue to focus on strong academics and rigor, and at the same time developing a student who really is well-rounded and very confident to be confident about their next steps for their future. You know what? I would just say that I really enjoy being out and about with the teachers and the students, and if anyone has something special that they have going on, a project or an activity, and they would like for me to be involved in some way, I'd love to be able to do that. Something else that I think would be really awesome to be able to implement in the next couple of years would be some form of district leadership team with our students. I know that we have leaders at every level in all of our schools, but I'd really like to think about, what might that look like at a district level.
That would be kind of cool, and especially with maybe a new high school and a long ways down, I assume. But I mean, with the Westfield the way the population is growing and the way that they're throwing up neighborhoods and subdivisions, I'm sure you've seen all that. I can only imagine how big this school is going to get in a couple of years. So
sure.
Yeah, well, I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.